Welcome to MCPSA's video forum on teaching for change. Today we wanted to hear from charter school educators from both sides of the state of Missouri about what it's like teaching during a pandemic. Joining us today is Bethany Brown from University Academy, Von Clark from the Academy of Integrated Arts, Angela Rosheim, who's with the Kansas City International Academy, and on the St. Louis side of the state is Sarah Urch from Confluence Academy, and then Kathy Van Winkle, who's with Gateway Science Academy. What has been some of the most challenging things that you've experienced since you've been back in school this semester?
Yeah, since I work across grades, I try to find trends and catch like patterns that are happening across the grades. The one thing that as a group of 3-5 that we struggle with is definitely keeping the kids motivated, right? Like in the classroom, we have compliment chains and, compliment jars and different things like that. And so finding ways to do that virtually with using, Class Dojo maybe, or like we use a program called Schoology that offers kids badges, just making sure that we're utilizing what we can to keep the kids motivated in the work that we're asking them to do. And then I think probably another factor is right now the parents are even more accessible to the classrooms as before. And so also having to, this may sound silly or strange, but also having to have some expectations for parents, right? Whenever we are building virtual classroom expectations, also sending something out to parents and saying, hey, make sure that you're keeping a quiet environment for your student, make sure that home stays in the home and doesn't enter into our virtual class and different things like that. And then lastly, and probably the biggest thing, and I think teachers, staff, just human beings in general are feeling just a slight disconnect between the tasks that we're being asked to do and then the connection, that human connection that goes along with it, that also is a motivator and an intrinsic motivator, right? And so going and seeing your coworkers every day kind of gives you an extra pep in planning and doing instruction and those connections, bouncing ideas off each other. And it's great virtually, but we all know that feeling of when, that fire strikes and you're with your content team or maybe your grade level team, and you guys just start going and you're building off of each other and that kind of stuff. So just those very human, very tangible like interactions with each other, and especially with the kids. We know that kids like developmentally love to be around each other. And I think about our 5th graders. They, 5th grade is that age where like peer perception and peer opinion really matters. And so when they're around each other and things are and like your friend is getting their work done, you're motivated to get your work done. Well, right now they're not around each other in that capacity. And so just keeping them engaged in learning, and wanting to take in content, wanting to take tests, wanting to, all that kind of stuff, without people being there, without people, has been a bit of a challenge.
Can anybody else respond to that? Any similar experiences or anything you want to add to that discussion?
Since I'm totally coming from the music side, from the music world, and the challenges have been countless, I guess I could say, but also kind of banking off what she had, what Bethany had mentioned as well, kind of the expectations of your home environment as well as your school and separating the two, and having the students, especially in music, because part of music is we listen to each other to stay together. And the technology that's out there right now is not refined enough that we can stay together. And there's a lag time. There are a couple of platforms out there that are pretty close with the lag time, but it requires expensive equipment on both ends. And a lot of our families can't afford that expensive equipment. So basically we're on Zoom, everybody mutes except for me. And so, which is hard, we all miss hearing each other. And a lot of times we'll unmute, and yes, we know there's going to be lag time, and it's going to sound awful, but just to hear each other, we miss that, because that's what we, as musicians, hearing is part of our class. Listening to each other is part of our class. If we're in tune, and how well we're in tune with each other. So that's been a challenge. And as for me, I'm trained in music, but it's a big deal, a big change to all of a sudden have to learn all these new platforms and like, whoa, this is so different than just playing the violin. Or my primary study is cello. And I spent hours studying the cello and learning it and living it, breathing it, smelling it. And all of a sudden, here's a whole nother content that I have to learn that's so different. It's like almost like asking our IT department, okay, guys, now you need to go learn how to play the violin. So it's been a challenge. And so, but on the other hand, it's like you're mentioning how the kids miss each other. Sometimes my sixth graders, I'll get in and letting them in the room, and while I'm getting things going, they're like, hi, so-and-so, hi, so-and-so. Hey, do you remember this? And they miss each other. They really miss each other. Yeah.
Well, personally, so at AFIA, we're really big on the project approach and like the hands-on learning, those field experiences. And so being at home, we've literally had to utilize our backyards and front yards, literally, to do like nature walks. And project now is like learning all about nature and why the leaves change color in the fall, and making nature collages and going on those scavenger hunts, and using those tangible things that are right outside of our homes to have problems, and just trying to be as creative as we can and still give children an authentic learning experience when we're kind of limited on what their field experiences can be. So we're trying to rock and roll with it and trying to do the best that we can and be as creative as possible and still incorporate like the science behind everything and incorporate the hands-on experience that we have right now in math and literacy and in writing. And another thing too is we are really big on like the social emotional piece and like teaching the kids how to be self-regulators. And in our classrooms, we all have calming corners. So when students feel really upset or have a big emotion, they can go to the calming corner. So we've adjusted that and said we'll create a calming corner at home. Where's a space in your house where you can have your pillows or your favorite stuffed animal or a book that you really like to read, something that you can write on. So trying to make those adjustments and still keep it as authentic as possible has been challenging and required a lot of creative thought, but we're tapping into that and just trying to keep it as authentic as possible. So that's been a challenge, but we're trying to make do with what we have.
I would agree with what Bethany had brought up earlier, just the human connection and missing that. And also, I think with orchestra, you were saying, you know, students are missing each other, and creating an environment for students virtually is really uncomfortable at first. It felt a lot like I was talking to myself, and so really trying to figure out how to create that energy virtually and how to get students engaged and motivated. A lot of other people have brought up. I know, Vani, you just mentioned making it as authentic as possible, or taking those traditional things and giving them a virtual place. And so I feel like trying to do that as well, you almost feel like you can't do anything and nothing is possible. And then you can think about it and think, okay, well, we usually do this. How can I make this possible? And just really thinking outside the box. Bethany talked about really collaborating with other people and getting energy that way. One thing that we're really facing with third grade here at our school in St. Louis is that 78% of our kids came in not reading at grade level. So we have, you know, this is the first grade that usually they take the MAP test in third grade. This is the first time they're held accountable. So there's like that teacher stress, and that just long term, I want them to know how to read, but right now they don't. And so we're really looking for opportunities to just face this obstacle head on. So you asked for obstacles, my students not reading, trying to accommodate and modify assignments so that not everything is reading and independent online. Recording ourselves reading a lot of the questions for reading, math, writing, and science. Doing a lot of visuals. We have about 50% African American, 50% Spanish speaking students. I don't speak Spanish. So just really thinking outside the box. How would I do this in the classroom? I talk with gestures a lot. I use pictures a lot, and just being more purposeful with that.
It's been hard. It's hard without, having the resources of physical books in their hands. We have been very intentional about being consistent with how we are delivering instruction. being consistent with when things are due, the format that we use, trying not to use a lot of bells and whistles, but getting them to understand the main things that we're using. We are using a lot of articles, and again, just like Sarah said, scaffolding for some kids and recording if it's necessary, finding resources like on ReadWorks that does level some things and reads aloud for them. Still working on high quality instruction, working on citing their text evidence, all of the skills that we would do in class, but we just have to do it in a virtual environment. So we strive for shorter articles, strive for articles that are more current, some current events, just any way that we can get them reading, thinking about reading, getting some of those reading strategies and comprehension strategies in now while we can do that. This is a good time to do it. If we go much longer with distance learning, we're going to have to do something a little different, because we need to get them into books and we need to get them into some longer texts that are really interesting to them.
So what are some concerns about, learning gaps that might result out of, being essentially, in this new environment? Can anybody address what you're seeing in terms of progress from your students, and then how are we going to work to make sure these students are ready, down the road? Anybody can jump in.
I think that one of the speaking to learning gaps in person, of course, one thing we would do is we would build our small groups, right, based on like ability and F&P levels or whatever benchmark you're taking. And so I think one of the hurdles and also one of the concerns with the gaps is we had to figure out how we could do that online. So of course we use like breakout sessions and whatnot, and then whatever challenges come with that. And so that time it took to set that up felt slower than it would in the school year. But I also think that just pacing in general, right? We have the kids longer. We're able to be more fluid and flexible with our teaching whenever we're in person. Like we know how to bring up what we did math over in social studies, and we just kind of like weave stuff in, and you duck and dodge like that. And that agility doesn't feel as present, or doesn't feel like it's really an opportunity sometimes online teaching. And I know that some of the teachers I talked to said, I know in person I kill it, but online I just don't know how to be that agile, and I don't know how to be able to be, and that strength of my teacher self, I don't know how to exercise it in this space. And so those things that we did would fill in those gaps, and it just seems like it's a little harder to do, and pacing moving through our curriculum just feels a little slower. So that's kind of our concern at UA.
We've come across that same dilemma. Everything seems to take so much longer, but as long as we focus on our essential standards and provide the scaffolds and the support that's needed, I think we're going to be okay. I really think that the kids are going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to take risks, as well as we are. We have to grow and we have to take risks and try new things, but the kids have been really willing to do that. I am really missing them, but I am so proud of what they have shown that they can do and what they're willing to do and the perseverance they have. They amaze me, and I'm very happy with what's happening right now.
We have a really great opportunity to see what actually feeds students forward in their learning. And so just really even thinking about like, what am I teaching? Why am I teaching it? How do I know that they learned it? I feel like it's an opportunity to go back to those really basic questions that sometimes when we have an entire school day, it feels like there's time to do a lot of other things that maybe are not the most important, or maybe they are, but just actually pausing and thinking what is important. And so in the last couple of weeks, I've learned a lot about how to give students feedback in a way that makes them respond and grow in their learning, so that I can see that they're learning. Giving feedback really quickly, giving it to them in a way that they can understand it, looking at the work that they turn in on online platforms and being able to look just like in the classroom. Are they understanding or misunderstanding this assignment? Did I ask it in a confusing way? Are they struggling with this vocabulary? Just being really intentional with what we are putting forth to them, but also taking that time to communicate with them. Hey, you're getting it. This is awesome. Or, hey, this is not the quality of work I'm looking for. Sometimes I think, grading things can take a back seat when you get really busy, but giving feedback is one of the most important things we can do to feed forward our students.
Can I put something in really quickly about feedback? If you have not used the Moat extension, MOTE, it allows you to give voice feedback. And I have found that my kids are way more likely to listen to my feedback and respond to it. I highly suggest it. Plus, it doesn't seem like you're just giving the grade. You're telling them, work on this, change this. I would suggest you try this. So I highly suggest Moat.
Kind of expanding on Bethany had talked about, sometimes you feel like you're hearing your own voice, and also Sarah had mentioned about integrating that socialization. Also, it's not only the kids. When Bethany had mentioned that how the kids, they need each other, that support, but also as teachers, we need our kids.
Mm-hmm.
We become, and their energy also is embedded in us. The more energetic they are, it's kind of this win-win. And when you're mentioning, like, I'm just by myself, I only hear my voice, and you're not even asking somebody to be quiet. I almost miss asking somebody, hey, be quiet, don't talk while I'm talking. Of all things to miss, I miss that. And their energy also gives us energy. And it's a multi experience, not just for the kids, but for us as well. They feed off our energy, but we feed off of theirs as well. And so, and I think and you almost have to pretend or be a performing artist and pretend as though those kids are around you and telling them not to, don't play while I'm playing as a musician, because that helps our energy level as well. So, so it's all encompassing.
Even though this is not the ideal way to teach, I feel like I'm allowing myself to have more time for thought for individual students, and like using my voice to record that feedback. Like we're using Seesaw as our online platform. And I'll say, oh, I noticed in your drawing that you did X, Y, and Z and you labeled. I see that you remembered your beginning sound for this. And one of the parents was like, oh my goodness, we always play your feedback and they love it so much. Hear your voice. And we'll set goals. And we just started doing like the one-on-one conferences, and I'll listen to them read to me, and we'll work on, goals that we set maybe the week before. And it's like, wow, I really feel like this is a good time to just focus on the individual children and give them what they specifically need. And it's like, I'm learning all kinds of stuff about them. Like, oh yeah, I love Teen Titans, or, and we talk about in class, but like now that they're in their home setting, they're like showing me stuff, and parents are even like, yeah, what kind of movies do you like to watch? And so I'm building like more of a rapport with parents and families. So yeah, exactly what Sarah and Angela were saying, just about that individualized attention and allowing them to hear your voice and interact with you personally has been definitely something that's been prevalent during our online school.
Well, and to build off of Vonnie's point when she was talking about how she's having them like go out their yard and engage in that way, I think a huge way of addressing gaps is also making, and like Angela said, like trying to find current events, right? Because the kids are really living this and it's kind of unprecedented. And so making everything they're doing more relevant to their world, because now they're like really, really in their world, I think will also help with some of those gaps that we're concerned about. So finding ways to engage them. I know some of the math teachers, like at the end of every lesson, they'll have them go find something that has like that represents an array in their house. Or the science teacher definitely has the kids go out and engage in their yard and nature and whatnot. ELA is using current events and everything. So just using that to get kids thirsty enough for the learning that they start filling in some of their own gaps, and they start wanting to read more, and they start wanting to engage in math more. And I think we need to use this opportunity to do that.
That creates deep thinking as well.
Yeah.
But I was also curious about how you all are kind of keeping a pulse on the social and emotional needs of the students, but also too of fellow educators and yourselves as well. I mean, you know, I know that this kind of teaching and it can be quite exhausting. So if you have any stories or, you know, tips or ideas, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that component of working in this sort of an environment.
I actually have this book, and it's called Breathe Like a Bear. I don't know if you've seen it before. And it's really good with younger students, even maybe older students as well. And it just has all these different ways that you can like practice mindfulness and calming your body and focusing and like mindful listening and different ways that you can breathe and like creating a rainstorm with your body and all of those fun things. But like just teaching strategies to the kids, like I know that this is frustrating because I get frustrated too, to be honest. You know, there are times where it just feels really hard, and I know it's hard on the kids because they want to be together. Like, you know, all of us had mentioned on our call, Kathy really emphasized how much, you know, she just misses that interaction and that energy that we get from each other. So I think just giving them strategies that we would give them in the classroom that they can use at home is a really good way to just kind of keep everybody socially and emotionally balanced and letting them know that it's still a safe space. So that's something that we've been trying to do in our virtual learning.
I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I feel like I can never turn it off. It's almost like it's constant because, you know, we teach during the day, but then at night the kids are working on things, and so there are texts coming through and emails and questions through Google Classroom, and I feel already that I'm not doing enough. So I am answering those. I am letting them know where they can find help, where they can find a video for this. That's personally what I'm feeling, and I don't know how much longer I can sustain that. I kind of felt that in the spring too. It's like we almost didn't have a summer because it just kind of all went into spring and then summer school, and then we started preparing for this. As far as the kids and how they're dealing with it, I have found that it's been hard to create community and to create relationships with the kids because they are virtual, but we've started, and I can tell they're kind of figuring each other out now. You know, I have 7th and 8th graders, so these kids don't always know each other really well, but we're doing questions of the day. We are doing, just when we start our classes, we do the little chat, like what is a good thing that happened today? What's something that you're struggling with? And that's just kind of helping them get to know each other and kind of trusting each other and not being scared to put things in the chat and to answer questions.
You know, the kids are really owning like their pacing, right, of their day. So we do have kids that will like get on at 9:30 and be like, hey, where can I find the video for blah, 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 blah. And because these kids are kids that we've had for years that really never cared during the morning, but now we're learning that like they're just night owls.
Yeah.
And they want it. And so you kind of want to cater to that because that's the type of learner they are. That's the type of person they are. That probably isn't going to change. It's probably who they were the entire time I was, you know, staring at them in the classroom with their head down. They sleep during the day and they're up at night, you know, and it is one of those people. So yeah, it does feel like it's a 24-hour thing.
I just want to give a shout out to my social worker. I hope she watches this. Her name is Jenny Siegel, and she's just, I wish that everyone had a Jenny Siegel in their life, but she's been being really purposeful with coming to 3 through 5 classroom meetings once a week. And in the regular school year, so many things are happening that she can't actually come into the classroom. Usually there's emergencies or these things happening, but when you're learning virtual, she can carve out that time. And so she's coming into the classrooms, and the teacher's still there and participating in this meeting, but they're working on something that's related to SEL, or our school's looking to transition some students back in small groups in about 2 weeks, and we found out yesterday. So looking at, okay, how can we get students on board with this? What kinds of conversations are we going to have with them on Zoom before they come back? How do we transition well? just being really purposeful with that time. I like to do morning meetings regularly in the school year. And so not reinventing the wheel, but having that in person, it was really uncomfortable. And, some kids don't want to have their cameras on or have their environments in the background. So not requiring that, but making that safe space. And, we're on week 6 this week. This is the first week that all of my students' cameras have been on consistently, and I haven't had to prompt them just, hey, I missed your face, or can I see a thumbs up or a thumbs down? But giving them space to, turn their environment or turn their face off for you and feel safe, but now maybe feeling like they can show their face feels a lot better. And then just making, I think, it a priority to be checking in with staff members. I know sometimes when I get stressed out, I withdraw into myself and I just feel like I don't have any time and I'm holding it so tightly. So I know this week, for instance, one of our meetings I was supposed to have with my team, the purpose for the meeting was canceled. And so I just wanted to tell my team, hey, just do your own thing. We're not going to meet, because I felt like I needed time. But then I tried to flip my mindset. How can we use this time that we never get to establish connections with one another? And so taking time we just talked about our core values as people, and there was no kids running in the hallway. No one burst into my classroom to tell me something. I was able to have uninterrupted time with my colleagues, and it was really hard. It was a sacrifice to give, but afterwards there was a lot of connection with us, and I can say that Thursday and Friday felt a lot better.
I want to thank you all for all that you do. You truly are our heroes here at the Association, and I really appreciate the time and the thoughtful consideration that you gave the questions. And it looks like to me, just from listening to you all, that it's certainly hard, but there's also some bright spots. There's also some silver linings and some different types of learning going on. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great afternoon.